Not to take anything away from her, because Layla's costume was incredibly cool, but come on, we were all thinking it. Her costume looks like Sam Wilson's. Hello interwebs, and welcome to my review of the possibly series, but more likely probably season finale of Moon Knight. I say either of those because there's not been an official announcement of a season 2 renewal, but there's been like little hints of it with like the official Twitter page rechanging their thing from saying series finale to season finale, so unclear. We'll see what ends up happening, but either way, this was a strong finale to go out on. And also, by the way, random aside, I don't know the title of this episode because I literally watch these episodes as they go up on Disney Plus at midnight, and as of right now, I'm literally looking at the page right here on my computer screen. It's not saying the episode title, it just says episode 6, so I have no idea what the actual title of this episode is. The weirdnesses of filming when I film. Anywho, like I said, this is actually a really, really strong finale. But unlike last episode, which really distinguished itself as like something unique to Moon Knight, like last episode was amazing and probably my favorite episode of the series, that really showcased like what this series and Mark and Steven as characters can bring that makes this show something special beyond like the Egyptian culture flavor, which is also really, really cool. But that episode, storytelling wise, really did something new. This finale, while there are moments of like its own unique identity, was more along the lines of the thing that we kind of come to expect from Marvel finales, whether they be movies or the TV shows at this point. The sort of big bad brawler beat 'em up fight between people with similar abilities and style and fighting styles. And it's not bad by any means. Like I said, there are some unique things in here that I really enjoyed that we'll talk about in a second, but overall it was just a standard Marvel finale with a couple little pieces here and there that made it stand out as something good, but not necessarily hitting that great status that last episode hit. But kind of going through it, I do liked that we sort of picked up right where we left off 2 episodes ago with Mark being dead and sort of seeing where Layla's been this entire time. Like literally it's just been a few seconds later, and Harrow's won. He's got all the things that he needs to sort of bring back Ahmed back, and he has the little staff that can judge people's souls, and Layla's going after him. And I really liked Harrow's like first line where he sort of stopped by these guards and he says, "We don't need to show you our papers, but you need to show us your souls." I'm like, oh, boy was waiting for that one. He had prepped that. He had that prepped. He was waiting all day to say that line, and it was kind of fun. And I also really loved seeing Taret speak to Layla through the dead bodies, just like this like girly, very excited voice coming from these dead bodies and or being very excited and talking to Layla. It made me laugh to honestly see that. And I did like that Layla had a reticence towards being an avatar after seeing everything that's happened to Mark and Steven, like the horrors that they have felt and they being a prisoner to Khonshu, I thought was really good. But again, it also set us up for having a goal where she needs to go and rescue Khonshu in order to bring Mark back. So all of that was clear, good, and like a nice solid beginning to the episode. Then we finally do get Harrow releasing Ahmed, and I think this was probably my favorite scene of the entire episode, where we meet Ahmed and she's the big alligator, and I thought it was really just the visual look of her was pretty impressive, to be honest, for a television show. And I really loved that this scene showcased the hypocrisy embedded within her philosophy. Because first off, I love that Harrow was a true believer. When he found out that his scales weren't ever going to be balanced, he was like, okay, I accept it, willing to die, like I believe in this, and you know, if I'm not a good person, then I'm not a good person, and I die. And I just like that he was an actual true believer in this ideology that he was willing to die for. Like he was that sort of radicalized to the belief that Ahmed put forward. But Ahmed herself was actually a hypocrite because she says, well, I'm willing to let you live because you'll serve me, and sort of not even going within her own ideology, and that not even really throwing Harrow that much. He's sort of like, yeah, I'll be your avatar, I'm down for it. And I also like the very fact that the reason that his scales were unbalanced was because he was going to be working for her, that her service was what led to his scales being imbalanced. Like, it's not overstated necessarily, but it just speaks to, like, the hypocrisy within this ideology that she's willing to let these things slide because it suits her agenda, suits her what she's looking for. And so I just appreciated that inherent problem just starting right in the beginning of her philosophy here. Then we jump back to Mark in the field of reeds, and I like that he goes back for Steven. And I really loved the scene where he sort of accepts Steven and says, like, you were part of me. I loved you. You were the person that, like, allowed me to feel protected and safe. And I appreciated this because, you know, having learned a lot more about DID through this show, which is part of why I really liked this show for me, just getting to learn a little bit more that I didn't really know much about DID. I saw a lot of people in the comments in last episode and in other places as well, kind of getting upset that there was a possible, like, assumption that this Steven dying last episode supposedly was curing DID magically, and not appreciating that this show is showing like a magical cure to DID, as well as some people also wanting to accept their alters as a part of who they are. And so I saw them taking issue with that possible direction that the show was going to take, but I thought that we had invested so much in Steven as a character that him going back was sort of an inevitability, and I liked that we actually got to see that. And I liked that it wasn't sort of saying, I'm magically cured of DID, but it was accepting Steven into who he was as a person, and sort of them having a balance between the two of them. I thought that was honestly a rather sweet message, and one that I would honestly be curious to see what people who have DID speak more on, and just let me know what you think about it. Because for me, I thought that was sort of a beautiful acceptance of the totality of yourselves, but I can't necessarily speak on that for the community, so I really appreciated it, and I thought it was nice to see. One thing I was confused upon is I know that Layla breaking Khonshu's statue was what let Mark come back to life, but I wasn't entirely sure why it would open the door. Was that Khonshu that sort of like let him walk through the gates? I was a little bit confused on the exact logic of how that worked, but I was willing to run with it. And I like Tara saving them by going with the boat on the Dua. I thought that was also really, really fun too. And Steven yelling hippo at that moment was also great. I also liked that Steven, not Mark, that Steven sort of took the initiative to negotiate with Khonshu when they got back, because he was saying, like, let us go if we do this thing for you. And I like that Steven sort of took charge for that and sort of like helping Mark in that situation. Like, Steven got to be the negotiator. I thought that was really nice. And then also when he shoots up in the air, he makes the Moon Knight symbol. That was also cool too. I also liked that Layla did not let Khonshu make her his avatar, because she did not trust him at all after, like I sort of said before, after everything that she saw with Mark. So that scene also really worked for me, and just being like, no. But then I also really loved her accepting Tara as her avatar and getting the suit, and like the jumping back and forth between her and Tara, I thought was really fun. The actress played it super well, and it was just really well displayed and very, very funny. And I liked sort of that sort of look. One thing though that I was a bit perturbed by here is we do get a quick reference from Tara to Layla that she knew her father, but there's no real resolution to that kind of idea at all. Like, she just sort of hears like, oh, you knew my father, and then we don't get a moment at the end of all of this, because the episode kind of wraps up really quickly, where she gets to kind of have a coming to terms with her father's death or some sort of emotional catharsis, and it leaves her feeling a little bit in limbo at the end of the episode, because that was sort of the last big emotional beat that we got for her character, and so I was a bit disappointed in that story beat. It felt like the show kind of forgot her after that point. And hopefully if we get a season 2 or the character gets picked up in a Marvel MCU movie or another show down the line, hopefully that'll be a plot thread that continues, but I would have liked a little bit more of a button on that story beat than we got in this episode. And then we got what I kind of alluded to earlier, the Marvel Universe end fight punchy-punch people of similar abilities hitting each other sort of thing. I will say Ahmed and Khonshu fighting as giant like avatars after Ahmed ate all these souls, just sort of beating people up. I thought that was a really cool visual. I deeply enjoyed that. And then also the moment where someone asked Layla, are you an Egyptian superhero? And like seeing the like, oh, I got to like see an Egyptian superhero moment was really cool, reflecting what I'm sure many people are feeling about the show. So that was a nice little beat. Possibly Marvel patting itself on the back a little bit for like, hey, we did representation. I could see that argument, but overall I thought it was a nice little beat, even if it was a little bit of like patting yourself on the back. But And then also we get another blackout moment where when Harrow's about to defeat Steven and Mark, they black out and they have another personality, another allusion to that. And I was curious if that was going to come back up in this episode, because this episode, despite being the shortest of the season, had a lot to do. And I think for the most part it does it with a aplomb, outside of, like I said, mostly the stuff with Layla I felt got dismissed to the side. But then they are able to beat Harrow and Ahmed and trap Ahmed in Harrow's body, and then Mark refuses to kill Ahmed, which I thought was a decent resolution to his character, considering that Mark's life has been defined by violence, and enacting the violence on other people, and finally getting to choose, no, I don't do this for you anymore, Khonshu, I thought was a good, like, arc ending to his character. And then Khonshu leaves, and he sort of removes the Moon Knight from him, and then we get probably a really quick resolution in my mind that kind of confused me, because again, it felt like a really speedy wrap-up, because suddenly we're back in the asylum that we saw last episode, and Mark and Steven sort of say, like, nope, this isn't real. We see that Harrow has blood on his foot, and so this isn't real at all. And I was sort of confused by what this symbolized, because I thought the asylum was all, like, them in this sort of afterlife, and so I was just sort of confused by what exactly was going on here. And I get that it symbolically represented, like, oh, reality could not be real, this could all be in our head, maybe it's just something that's made up, but I don't, it felt like a weird button thematically to end this show on, because I don't think, like, not accepting reality was the issue with the character. It was like accepting yourself, not accepting reality. So it was a weird beat to end on, and kind of threw me like, okay, did the entirety of this season not happen? Is it all in his head? It was confusing in a way that I don't think necessarily matched up with the themes or ideas of the show. Maybe that's just me. Maybe you think differently. I was a bit perturbed or befuddled by the choice, to be honest with you. But then we have him ending back up at home, and they're living out their life. And then we get an after credit sequence where we learn that Khonshu is still possessing Mark, but he's using the third personality, who is the cab driver that everyone was alluding to, and they kill Harrow and Ahmed. So now Harrow and Ahmed's off the board, which is sad, because I would have liked to see more Ethan Hawke, because I've enjoyed him in this show and would like to know in the MCU. But it is a sort of nice setup for a season 2, or possibly wherever this character is going to show up in the movies or another show. So it was a good little pickup beat for further Marvel projects, and so I like that illusion that wasn't resolved. Like that storyline of the third personality not being completely resolved, considering that it wasn't as integral, like that storyline wasn't as integral to the season as a whole, I liked. I thought that thread being left open worked for me. The only thing, though, that just leaves a bad taste in my mouth to a degree is Layla not having resolution with her father, even though that was brought up a little bit. And then Layla and Mark not necessarily getting a resolution either. Again, maybe that'll be picked up down the line. But I feel like if this season really wanted to put a nice button on the thematics, it would have been better to have them have some sort of reconciliation in the final moments of the show. I just felt like it didn't wrap them up in a way that I would have liked. So my biggest problem with this episode is that it didn't have the resolutions that I really think it needed to, which is kind of frustrating considering that this is the shortest episode that the show has done. So I just wish they had added like 1 or 2 more scenes, because I really think only a few more minutes of this episode really could have nicely tied everything up for me. But sadly, we don't get it. So if I have any negative, I think that's it. I think it ties things up a little bit too quickly and misses a few things as a result. But on the whole, despite the fact that this was a sort of Marvel punchy-punch fight that we've seen before, it was a solidly done Marvel punchy-punch fight with a few good moments here and there that I really enjoyed. So, on the whole, really good episode, strong finale, if not necessarily something amazing, that I do think wrapped up a few story beats a little bit too quickly and didn't wrap up a few that I wish could have been left not dangling a little bit. But on the whole, I enjoyed it. But that's Moon Knight, and it's not going to be too much longer until I have to wait for another MCU thing, because I'm going to be watching Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness on Friday, so depending on when I go and see the movie in theaters, I'm hopefully going to record a review that Friday night to go up either that night or Saturday morning, so be on the lookout for that. That'll be coming in just a few days, and then also I'm going to have the Halo review. Star Trek Strange New World starts on Thursday, which I'm excited about, and then the Star Trek Picard Season 2 finale, which I'm sure I'll have thoughts about that too, so Thursday's going to be a long day in terms of reviews. But be on the lookout for those 3 reviews on Thursday, Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness on Friday. But beyond all of that, thank you for being here. Oh, don't forget to subscribe to my main channel and this channel as well. Beyond all of that, my friends, live long and prosper.